Everyday people working 9 to 5, saving up that money, trying to survive, investing in the future, trying to be wise, you gonna be money heroes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nik Johnson, host of Everyday Money Heroes, and I've reached early retirement. I'm here to provide information on how to obtain financial independence and inspire you through sharing stories of everyday people who are turning knowledge into freedom.
That hustle, always reaching for the sky, we're gonna be money heroes, never gonna shy.
All right, hello and welcome to the Everyday Money Heroes Show. We provide information and inspiration to people of all ages to take control of their financial journey. I'm your host, Nik Johnson, and today we have Shaun Morgan here with us. We are at FinCon 2025, and we are having a conversation about frugal living. And I was at a meetup, and it was like-minded people. We were talking about frugal living. I met Shaun, and he said, hey, you know what? That really resonates with him. He's actually the host of the Teacher Money Show, and we're going to definitely get him to discuss that platform with us, let us know about him, what caused him to have that passion to start that platform. Then we're going to get into frugal living. So that being said, thank you so much, Shaun, for being here. And how'd you get here, and what is the Teacher Money Show?
Yeah, so I help teachers learn about the personal finance because as a teacher myself, I was listening to personal finance content and realized that not everything necessarily applied very well from the public sector and the private sector. So a lot of advice given is for private sector, and public sector employees like teachers just need a little bit of a translation over. And then, just on the frugal living point, it's all about living more frugally, because each dollar you save is like $25 you don't need when you retire.
That is true.
So really realizing that if you can't control like massively increasing your income to put away more money, then each dollar you save has a huge effect on your life. So just trying to help teachers with that.
That's great. And one of the things I was doing after we connected, I looked at your content, and you had a very compelling video, and it made me think about it. When I was younger, the misinformed thought I was cheap. Like, oh, you're so cheap. I'm like, no, I'm not cheap. I spend money. But you had a video where you kind of talked about the concept of being cheap versus being frugal.
Yeah.
And if you could, before we get into our conversation, kind of share, just kind of give a baseline, what your thoughts were and what is your interpretation of the difference between being cheap and being frugal?
Yeah, so a cheap person is someone who is saving a buck at the expense of everything else, right? Maybe even a reputation or a relationship, or even they're saving a buck when it's long-term a bad decision. Like, for example, if you're always that person that forgets your wallet when you go out to eat, you're cheap, right? While a frugal person, they're saving money. Yes, you're saving money if you're frugal. You are avoiding unnecessary spending, but you'd be willing to spend, more money, for example, on a pair of shoes, knowing that it would last longer, because you're going to get a better time value out of that. While the cheap person would just say, hey, I can get $2 shoes at Goodwill, therefore that's the better choice, but you're gonna have blisters, or you're gonna have athlete's foot, or whatever's gonna happen. Like that's a cheap decision, while the frugal person will think ahead to like the long-term value of it. I think I have this great example right now.
Sure.
I'm staying in a hotel, and I go into the bathroom there, and the shower has these dark, the current thing for bathrooms is have that dark metal look, right? And it has that look, and you look closer, it's painted on there.
Oh, wow.
Right? So they're trying to look, nice. They're trying to have this high-end look, but instead of paying for actually nice material, they just paid for a can of paint. That's cheap. And the ironic thing is, like, the shower head just dumps water on you. So if they had bought a nicer, newer one, they would save money long term, because they would use
be more
less water.
efficient.
It'd be more efficient, right? So the person that owns this hotel is obviously making cheap decisions versus frugal ones.
Right, that's great. It's important that we understand the difference, because there's a stigmatism, or kind of this mindset that just because someone does not spend their money on everything, that doesn't mean that they're not having a full life and they're not willing to have great experiences. Because I spend money all the time on experiences. That's my big thing. That's kind of my value. I don't have, my values aren't necessarily around material things. I don't really care a whole lot about, okay, the latest watch, the name brand, this. I don't really care about that, but I care about experiences. That's my big thing. And so when we talk about being frugal, it kind of goes into intentionality. And I'm very intentional with what I spend. And I think that's what really helps with individuals understanding that, frugality is just a part of having that mindset where you're very intentional with what you're spending money on.
Yeah, intentionality is huge, especially because one of the things I talked about in that video you're referring to is we were in this era of the luxury mindset, right? Everyone's all about luxury. Like you watch these commercials, they're like the all new luxury credit card. I'm like, what's so luxury about a credit card? It's a piece of plastic. I mean, like there's nothing really luxury about it, but that's like the buzzword, right? And people are all about, I want to have a luxurious life, the nice bag, the nice car, the nice this. Those things are kind of antithetical to frugality, because frugality is just about having the things that are satisfying to your needs and enjoying that. You're just intentionally choosing the things that are going to satisfy what you need and having a richer life as a result of that, instead of pushing and constantly wanting more and better and luxury. Like even though that the amount of value you get for the price that you're putting into that is not substantially higher, right? So it's just like you get the most bang for your buck when you're doing the frugal lifestyle, because you're getting what actually meets your needs. And some of your wants too, right? Like some of these things that just like really matter to you, like experiences, right? Those things that you're looking for, like, some people it's travel, some people it's building like a life with your family at home. Some people want to give back in certain ways. All those things can come from the frugal mindset, while luxury is not going to have that, and cheap is not going to have that.
Yeah, that's true. I recently heard Vicki Robbins speak to my frugality today, buying my freedom tomorrow. And that's what's extremely important. So frugality is definitely up there. So thank you for kind of baselining us there, Shaun. So we got a couple questions we're going to discuss here. And first of all, we want to talk about frugal living and that mindset, and that kind of gives us that segue. So how can an individual cultivate their frugal living and make smarter financial decisions without feeling like they are constantly sacrificing? So a lot of times people feel like, I can't do anything, I can't have any fun because I'm being frugal. So how can we kind of get past that mindset?
Well, I think there's two parts of that. One is if you've saved up intentionally for those things that matter to you, you don't have to feel guilty about spending your money on that because you expected to, right? And a frugal person will be like, okay, instead of getting into debt to, I don't know, say go to Disneyland, say that's what really matters to you. Instead of, putting this on a credit card and spending thousands of dollars to go and then I have to pay it off, I'm going to save up over time. And now that I have these thousands of dollars saved up, I can now go and really enjoy this experience, right? So that's going to be that mindset shift of not doing it, I want it now with the debt, but I'm going to save up for it and then spend it intentionally is really freeing. So I really like that aspect of it. And then the other thing to keep in mind is you don't have to sacrifice everything. You just really are, you're not even sacrificing, you're just cutting the things that don't matter, right? So my favorite way to do this is to track your spending. You know how much money is coming in, you know how much is going out, but more importantly, you know what it's going out on. So if you're tracking your spending, saying, I spent this, I spent this, I spent this, you write it down, you write down how much you spent on what, and then you look back at that and you go, why did I spend that? And why did I buy that? Why did this really matter to me that I spent this amount on this thing? And I do it consistently. Well, if this doesn't matter to me, I can cut that out. And now I can put that money more towards the things that actually matter. So it's about just removing the excess, removing the waste, more than it is about just sacrificing everything fun, everything, that kind of makes life exciting, right? So if you keep those things in, but you spend on it with money that's not debt, and also remove things that don't matter, so that way you can have the money to spend on the things that do, those two things kind of make sacrifice not really an aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. But once again, I guess we kind of still fall back to that intentionality, right? Because when we plan, we're sitting down and we think about, okay, what do I want to do? Then we almost reverse engineering on, okay, what do I need to do to get to that point? And maybe it's like, okay, I've identified a trip that I want to do. It might cost me $2,000 to do it. Okay, well, that means that I might need to save up $100 for 20 weeks. And I'll just do that. And at the end of it, I'll have it. And that way I can go, I can have that experience, and we have a good time. So that's extremely important. And so also another thing when we talk about sacrificing, I don't think we should view it as sacrificing. It's just doing the required steps. Because almost anything in life, there is some type of process that we have to do. If you want to get to the point where, you can run a 4-minute mile, guess what? It's just some things you're going to have to do as far as training and preparation to be able to get there. If you want to be able to lift a particular weight, do anything in life, it's a process. And so we don't view it as sacrificing. Just look at it as, okay, you're following the process, and there's certain intentional things that you need to do to be able to get there. Okay, so we talk about the mindset as far as being there and understanding that we're not sacrificing, but also we want to talk about family. And so one of the things we talk about is tips for communicating the benefits of frugal living. I know you talked previously about, every dollar we save, it kind of helps us when it comes to the 4%. And so how can we go ahead and tell our families, like, hey, you know what, because you're married, correct, Shaun?
Yes.
And you have kids, I believe.
I have 3 kids.
Oh, 3 kids. Okay, so what are the ranges?
I got an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-month-old.
Okay, all right. So you got yourself a nice range there. Yeah. And so how would you suggest someone who is thinking about this frugal lifestyle and just kind of sharing the benefits of that frugal lifestyle with their family if there's a little pushback coming?
Yeah, so, from kids, there's usually going to be pushback because we're in this world where they're just constantly being sold to. They always want more. They want more. And I think that setting that baseline with your kids of we're only going to spend money on things that matter. I personally, my favorite way to do this is with a book that I read. And I'm just going to shout out the author, David Delisle. I met him at a FinCon. Okay. It's called The Golden Quest. It's like a picture book, like a comic that talks about money for kids. And his main takeaway is the awesome stuff. We spend money on the awesome stuff, but not the other stuff, right? So having a framework to talk to your kids about when they're like, oh, I want to buy that candy bar right now. It's like, well, for us, that's not the awesome stuff because we're trying to do this, right? And they can understand that concept really, really well. So I think just talking about it openly with your kids and explaining to them why. It's not just like, no, it's no because. And that can really be powerful. Now, with the spouse, it's a little different because you don't do that with your spouse, right? I think for your spouse, it's really about the vision and building that vision together of where you want your life to be. You say, okay, this is what we want our life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years. So for every time we, do those things that we're like, extraneous, that are not what we actually want really need, we're putting ourselves further away from hitting our goals. And if you can align your goals together, you can work towards them together, and then that really helps put each other on the same page. And then another thing that I think really helps is, and this is just kind of like a bonus, I guess, an extra, is if you are automatically saving, if you can just like make it an automatic, you don't have to think about it, this money is going towards our long-term goal, and then you can tell your spouse, like, look, what's left over, we can do whatever we want with, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to be constrained anymore because we've already put that money aside for the long-term goal, long-term vision. So this money is the money to spend. And it's there, so let's do something fun. Let's do those things that you want to do with that. And I think just giving that freedom to especially if you're the frugal spouse and they're the not frugal spouse, once you've built the system in place to like have frugality kind of built into your life, that kind of freedom to work within that space is really powerful.
Yeah, as you were making reference to the kids and making identifying the awesome stuff, I know I've had my son come to me on several occasions, especially when he was younger. He's a little bit older now. He's 15. But he would ask me to do something. And I'm like, no, son, we're not doing that. He's like, well, I know we can afford it. He's like, so why can't we get it? I was like, son, just because you can afford to do something doesn't mean that you're supposed to do it. And so I was like, we have a very specific value system, and we don't believe in just wasting our money frivolously. And as he got older, I would start to identify things to him. Like, for instance, this summer, we were in Europe for a month. I was like, the things that we did as far as being intentional with our spending allows us to be able to do these things. And you're like, all the, the additional, sneakers and all this other stuff that really doesn't matter. I was like, this stuff that matters. Now we have memories. And so I really try to call those kind of things out to him. And I'm sorry.
I've been recently trying to be intentional about that, where my kids say, can we get that? And the knee-jerk reaction is, no, you can't afford it, right? But then I stop myself. It's like, well, we could afford it. We're choosing not to afford it. Like
Right.
we're choosing to spend our money somewhere else. And I think that's so they know that like it's not just like the money's not there. It's that the money's not there for that purpose, and there is another purpose for it. I think that's a powerful tool.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of those life lessons that we can give our kids as we're doing it. And so, for instance, my wife and I, we were both retired. And so it gives us a freedom to be able to do things during the day. And so one of the things that we're doing is that I am president of the PTA. And so I'll be at my kids' school multiple times a year. I will be there, helping out with dances and helping to give out donuts and teacher appreciation. And I tell my sons, like, these are the things that our frugality now provides because we were intentional with our spending and we invested. And so now we no longer have to exchange our time for money. And so now we do have it, and we're able to be there. And everyone's like, "Hey, is that your mom? Is that your dad?" And we're able to do these fun activities, and because we have that freedom and just that frugality. And also when it comes to our spouses, like you said, just talk about why we're doing it. But also one thing I suggest is having long and short-term goals, with them. And one of the things, and I'm putting my relationship coach hat back on again, is that when you do long-term goals, it shows the other person that you see yourself with them in the future. So like, hey, we're going to have 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year goals. They're like, okay, I see myself with you in a whole decade. And so I think, it sends almost this subconscious message that, you know what, I'm here for long term, we're here for long term. So I think that's really important. And also quantifying why you're doing it.
That's beautiful. I love that.
All right, thank you, sir. One of the other things we want to talk about is the frugal path to freedom. So we talk about that. Many people aspire to gain financial independence or simply a life with less financial stress. And what you've experienced, Shaun, how does practicing this frugality today directly lead to achieving bigger financial goals, like paying off debt, saving for a home, or even building a retirement nest egg? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so there is no other way. Like you cannot get there without frugality. Like I'm not sure if people realize, like, if you wanted to pay off debt, I guess there are two options. One is to go make a ton of money, but then you have to stay exactly where you are, right? So then you can use that money to pay off debt. But like that's already a form of frugality, I guess, anyway, because it comes back to living within your means, putting money aside. Those are the principles of frugality. So then if you're not going to go and make a ton more money, the only way to make that gap between what you spend and what you earn is through frugality. So it really just comes down to, if you are serious about paying off debt, if you're serious about putting money aside so that way you can be free in the future and not continue to work until the day you die, basically, you need to have that gap. And that gap comes through frugal living. It comes through intentionality, right? The word frugal has a bad rap in a lot of ways, but it's really just about choosing where your money goes and not letting your money drive you anywhere it wants. So just having that intentionality, having that choice to build that gap is exactly what frugality does, and it's the only mechanism to get there.
Yeah. And like you said, you have to have a large amount of money to just spend money without thinking about it, and there be no true repercussions. If you think about it, how many sports athletes that you see who sign these multi-million-dollar contracts and they stop playing whatever sport they're doing, then a couple years later you hear about them filing bankruptcy. You hear about them getting caught up in stuff like Ponzi schemes, like doing illegal stuff because you're like, they had all this money. What happened? And even when you have that access to that kind of money, if you don't have some form of frugality, even if you just living 10 to 20% below your means, just something so they can go ahead and take that difference. Like you say, there's a book, I think it's called The Gap and the Game. But a lot of times I just think about the gap is the game, because when you have that gap between what you make and what you're spending, that gap is what gets you where you need to get to. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it allows you to be able to pay down that debt. It allows you to be able to invest. It allows you to create that emergency fund, so if something does happen, you can go ahead and have that freedom to go ahead and get ready to no longer have to exchange your time for money. And as we get close here to the end of our time, Shaun, I'd like to give kind of a call to action for folks. So in your thoughts, if you were talking to someone and say, you know what, I've heard about this frugality stuff, and I think it's I can get with it. So what would you tell them as far as like one step, like, okay, here's one tangible thing that you can do to start living more frugally today, what would you what charge would you give them?
The thing I recommend to anybody to start to begin is to track your spending. To just know where the money's coming from and where it's going. Because people often try and budget first, but the problem, and I don't agree with Dave Ramsey on everything, but the thing I do most agree with him on is he once said, the first time you budget, you're going to suck. And I fully believe in that because you don't really know where your money's going. So when you say, I'm going to spend $300 on food this month, and then you spend $9, you go, what happened?
Right.
And then you say budgeting doesn't work, and you freak out and you stop, right? But if you track your spending, you go, oh, over the past 3 months, I've spent, $750, I've spent $950, I've spent, $875 on groceries. On average, I'm spending this much. That's how much my budget is. And if I can stick to that budget, great. And then if I can slowly lower it by being intentional about what I'm spending food on, great too. But like, you have to have a base starting point. Like, this is actually what my budget really looks like in reality. So that way you don't blow your budget up and then freak out. So just being able to say, okay, I'm spending this much on food, this much on my housing, mortgage, utilities, insurance, this much on the car and gas and all those things, and this much on going out to eat, and this much on that. If you can get those buckets down, then you build your budget based on your current level. Then you get to start dialing it down in the places that don't matter as much with that intentionality. That is how you slowly ease your way into frugality, instead of just trying to go cold turkey or cut things out like crazy, which just ends up burning you out.
Yeah, no, that's true. And like you said, first thing you need to do is track before you budget. So most people, if you ask them what they think they're spending, like you said, they're going to be wrong. Because typically we always kind of underestimate what we think we're spending until we actually sit there and look at it. So get 90 days worth of stuff, get those credit card statements, Cash App, all the other stuff that you do, go pull it together and see where it's going. And then you have a snapshot of where you are. Then you can go ahead and, like I said, start trying to dial some stuff back. There are free tools that can do it, but also you can just do it old school if you want. You can go and just, pull out, your calculator on your phone and just kind of start with a pen and a pad and just kind of write stuff down, say this, add all up. But just kind of go ahead and do that. You can kind of refine that later on, but definitely you want to make sure that you're keeping track of that spending.
I really like the old school method of pen and paper because it psychologically, when you're writing something down, it hurts a little more. So it's going to help you realize how much, like when you have to actually literally write down every single line of everything you spent, you go, I am spending a ton of money. And it really just it sinks in better that way.
Okay, yeah. No, I didn't think about it that way, but that is a good point. If you're constantly sitting there and you're writing and you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, like I am doing a lot. So that's true. Well, thank you so much for the time here, Shaun. For our audience who want to follow you, so even though it is a teacher's platform, the concepts and things that you are sharing is applicable for everyone who's trying to get their finances right. So if you can kind of share what folks could connect with you and learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so the Teacher Money Show on any podcast platform, teachermoneyshow.com. You can also find a webinar just right on my homepage. It's a free webinar. I call it the Teacher's Financial PEMDAS for Guaranteed Success. It's just a step-by-step.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I got you.
Step-by-step approach to getting your money right. So, that'll benefit anybody. It is geared towards teachers, of course. So, even if you're not a teacher, I guarantee you know a teacher. So please share the message with them if this isn't the right fit for you.
All right, outstanding. Well, thank you so much, Shaun. We appreciate it. We're wrapping up today. I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have not, please like, share, subscribe. If you're on a podcast platform, please follow us there. And if you're following us on YouTube, please subscribe there as well. In closing, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time. And as always, this is Nik Johnson reminding you to trust the process. Have a great day.